Trump, tariffs, trade, FTAs. You must have heard these terms over and over in news over the last few days and weeks. What does it all signify and how does it affect your fortunes? And why in the world is India hoping that the Apple iPhone could well be its saving grace? Let us clarify the confusion once and for all. The global village is dead. Long live global trade. In other words, the advent of Donald Trump as the new president of the United States has caused, in just 1 month, total chaos and confusion to the way nations work with each other. The post-Cold War dreams of a new global order, where borders don't matter anymore, and businesses and trade work seamlessly across physical barriers of geography and politics, which was also spurred on by the likes of WTO, that's the World Trade Organization, the internet, and of course, China becoming the factory to the world. All of that now lie in tatters, virtually. But we are not going to discuss how one man can wreak so much havoc, or what the method in his madness is all about, or jump into a geopolitical digression. What we would look at is what all this talk of Trump imposing tariffs mean, and why nations of the world, particularly India, are scampering to swap treaties like strategic partnerships, most favored nation statuses, and most of all, FTAs, that's free trade agreements. India, for example, is caught in the crosshairs of Trump, who has long cribbed about India imposing high tariffs on American imports into India. Even Narendra Modi's best efforts in a bear hug was lost on the president-resident of White House, who saw no qualms in deporting Indians shackled in chains all the way across the 7 seas and imposing tariffs on steel. And that's just to start with. What Trump wants is simple. Reduce import duties so that more American petroleum and arms and planes and other finished products can enter the Indian market. Trump does have some justification though. India does charge high rates of customs duty on imports. For example, the gap between the duty India charges for an import from the US compared to how much the US charges on an import from India is as much as 32% on processed agricultural products and beef, and as much as 13% on gems and jewelry. Now, caught like a rabbit in front of headlights, India has already cut customs duty on 7 items, following up on the 7 already cut in the July budget, and it's taking a comprehensive look at other duties that can be cut. Now, with Trump still not satisfied, India has now promised to buy more of American petroleum and natural gas, with US officials voicing hopes that India could buy up to $25 billion worth of petroleum soon. While trying to pacify the US is something India is bending over backwards on, it is shrewdly not putting all its eggs in Trump's basket. The prices of eggs have shot up in the US, but that's another story. It has put into top gear its recent year's strategy of sewing up more free trade agreements. On February 27th, the European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen is coming for a high-level visit and discussions, a curtain raiser to the 10th round of India-EU free trade agreement talks next month in Brussels. Not surprising, considering Trump has been making Europe feel the heat, be it trade or Ukraine or its own security future. In the name of containing what was Soviet Union, which is now Russia, the US-led NATO has all this while been a protective shield for the welfare democracies of Western Europe, who have been happily letting the US spend all the money on arms and ammunitions and taking care of their security. Now, with Trump signaling enough is enough, and even worse, calling for tariff hikes, Europe is indeed got a rude awakening, forcing it to relook at its equations with India, which it hopes will be a good counterbalance not just to any possible future trade loss with the US, but also to China. In fact, the US-EU free trade talks started way back in 2013 and has been dragging on directionless till now, until both sides were jolted awake by Trump. There is now hopes of a comprehensive agreement happening later this year. For India, EU is just one piece of a strategy it's been putting into place ever since it walked out of the China-sponsored RCEP trade bloc back before the pandemic. In the last couple of years, New Delhi has also signed FTAs with Australia and the United Arab Emirates, while similar trade deals are in the works from the UK, Oman, as well as the FTA countries. That's a block of 4 nations in Europe: Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. Now, where does the Apple iPhone fit into all this? With Trump set to impose tariffs on India's top products exported into the US, that would be engineering products, pharmaceuticals, gems, and jewelry. There is hope that one fast-growing category will be spared a road traffic hike: electronics. The reason? Because Apple is now making India its manufacturing hub as part of its China Plus One strategy, and billions of dollars of Apple iPhones are being exported out of India. India fervently hopes the US government will take cognizance of its own company's interests, and which could, just could, rub off on India's own export fortunes.